Marcus Chen adjusted his backpack and took a sip from his coffee thermos. The station corridors still amazed him, even after 3 days aboard Harmony 7. Walls made of something that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. Lights that seemed to grow from the ceiling rather than being installed there. Gravity that shifted smoothly as he walked between sections designed for different species. He was going to be late for his first real class if he didn't hurry. The human checked his datapad one more time. Xenobiology, 101, Section 7, Professor Kelrax, Room 847 in the Delta Wing. Marcus had attended the mandatory orientation sessions, sat through hours of cultural sensitivity briefings, and memorized 17 different greeting gestures. He felt ready. Earth's first exchange student at the Galactic Collegiate Institute. No pressure at all. Marcus picked up his pace, walking at what he considered a normal speed. His sneakers made soft sounds on the smooth floor. Around him, other students moved through the corridors. Tall, bird-like creatures with feathers in colors he didn't have names for. Beings that looked like they were made of colored gelatin, sliding along without legs. Small, crystalline figures that chimed softly when they moved. He smiled at a group of the bird people as he passed. They had been friendly during orientation. One of them looked at him, and her feathers suddenly puffed out. She made a sharp chirping sound. The others turned to look at Marcus, and then they all hurried away, their feathers pressed flat against their bodies. Marcus frowned. Had he done something wrong? He kept walking. That was when every alarm in the station started screaming. Red lights exploded from the walls, pulsing so bright Marcus had to squint. A deafening siren wailed through the corridor. Blast doors, thick slabs of metal he hadn't even known were there, began sliding down from the ceiling with a grinding sound that vibrated through his bones. An automated voice boomed through speakers. Apex predator detected. All personnel shelter in place. Security team responding. This is not a drill. The message repeated in languages Marcus didn't understand, each one sounding more urgent than the last. The corridor erupted into chaos. Students scattered in every direction. The bird people launched themselves into the air, flying toward emergency alcoves. The gelatin beings flattened themselves into vents. The crystal students simply vanished, their bodies refracting light until Marcus couldn't see them anymore. Within seconds, the corridor was empty except for Marcus, standing alone with his backpack and coffee, completely confused. "What the hell?" he muttered. Drones appeared from hidden panels, sleek black machines bristling with weapons Marcus hoped were just for stunning. They surrounded him in a precise circle, each one tracking his movements with glowing red sensors. "Unidentified organism. Remain stationary," one of the drones announced. "Security personnel are en route. Do not make any sudden movements. Do not show aggression. Do not attempt to flee." Marcus very carefully raised his hands, still holding his thermos. "There's been a mistake. I'm a student. Marcus Chen, Earth, student ID 447892. The drones didn't lower their weapons. Heavy footsteps approached. A being Marcus had never seen before emerged from a side corridor, moving with the confidence of someone in charge. It had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands. Its body was covered in segmented armor that looked like it had grown there rather than been put on. 2 large eyes, multifaceted like an insect's, examined Marcus from what he assumed was its head. "Human," the being said. Its voice came from a translator device on its chest, turning its clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless words. "You are Marcus Chen from the planet Earth?" "Yes, that's me. What's going on? Why are the alarms—" "You triggered every biological threat sensor in 3 corridor sections," the being interrupted. "I am Security Director Zix Thrall. You will come with me for processing." "Processing? I was just walking to class." "Walking," Zix Thrall repeated, as if the word itself was suspicious. "Yes, we detected that. Come." The security director turned and began walking, The drones maintained their circle around Marcus, giving him no choice but to follow. He took a sip of his coffee because he didn't know what else to do, and immediately regretted it when half the drone's weapons powered up with a whining sound. "Do not consume substances," one of them barked. "It's just coffee." They led him to a security office, a sterile white room with a table and chairs that looked too small for Marcus. Zixthral gestured for him to sit. The security director's four arms moved across multiple screens, pulling up data that scrolled too fast for Marcus to read. "Explain," Zixthral said. "Why you were moving through the station exhibiting all the biological markers of an apex predator on an active hunt." Marcus blinked. "I was walking to class. Xenobiology. I'm going to be late." "Your locomotion pattern triggered alarms designed to detect escaped specimens from the Xenozoology Research Division, specifically predators of the most dangerous classification." "I'm not dangerous. I'm a college student." Zixthral manipulated one of the screens, turning it so Marcus could see. It showed a scan of his body, highlighting features in red. His legs, his eyes, his teeth, his muscle structure. Nearly everything was marked as a threat. "Bipedal locomotion optimized for pursuit across varied terrain," Zixthral read from the screen. "Binocular vision mounted forward for tracking prey. Prominent canines for tearing flesh. Unusual muscle density and endurance capabilities consistent with persistence hunting strategies. High adaptability to environmental changes. Omnivorous diet with strong preference for protein derived from other organisms." Marcus stared at the scan. They were describing a human like it was a monster. "These are all normal human features," he said slowly. "Everyone on my planet is like this." Zixthral's eyes seemed to refocus, all the facets adjusting at once. "Your entire species exhibits apex predator characteristics?" "I mean, we're not predators. Well, we were, but we evolved. We eat lots of plants, too. We're civilized." "The system does not detect civilization," Zixthral said. "It detects biological threat parameters, and you, Marcus Chen, register as one of the most dangerous organisms the station has encountered." Marcus set his coffee down on the table very carefully. "So what happens now?" The security director's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. "That is an excellent question. In my 300 years of service, we have never had an apex predator request admission to classes. Protocol is unclear." Outside the office, Marcus could hear voices arguing, multiple species, all talking over each other, the translators creating a cacophony of concern, fear, and debate. His first day of class, and he'd already become the biggest problem the station had ever faced. All because he'd been walking to class like a human. The meeting room was packed with representatives from a dozen different species, and Marcus sat at the center of it all, feeling like an exhibit at a zoo. For the past 2 hours, various officials had been arguing about what to do with Earth's first exchange student. Chancellor Vrixnall, who looked like a floating jellyfish in a containment suit, hovered at the head of the table. "The question before us is simple. Can we allow this human to remain at our institution? He triggered every predator alarm on the station." This came from a representative of the Avari, the bird-like species Marcus had accidentally terrified. Her feathers kept fluffing and smoothing in agitation. "My students are traumatized. 3 of them refused to leave their dormitories." Marcus slumped in his chair. This was a nightmare. "The human did not choose his biology," Professor Kelrax said calmly. The old scholar looked like a manta ray that had grown legs, with skin that shimmered between blue and purple. "He is no more responsible for triggering our alarms than a Vlox is for their gelatinous form." "A Vlox does not look like it wants to eat me," the Avarii representative shot back. "I don't want to eat anyone," Marcus said quietly. Several beings flinched at the sound of his voice. "I'm vegetarian, mostly. Sometimes I eat fish." The room went silent. Someone made a choking sound. "You consume other living creatures?" a crystalline shardkin asked, their voice like wind chimes. Deliberately? Fish aren't sentient, Marcus said, then realized how that sounded. I mean earth fish. They're just, animals. Just animals, the shardkin repeated, horrified. Chancellor Vrixnell raised several tentacles for silence. Let us review the facts. Humanity passed all the standard requirements for Galactic Collegiate membership. They demonstrated sufficient technology, culture, and peaceful intent. Earth's application made no mention of apex predator heritage. Because we didn't know it mattered, Marcus protested. Humans are normal where I come from. We didn't realize everyone else evolved from, non-predators. Zixthral projected a hologram above the table. It showed a family tree of galactic species and their evolutionary origins. Marcus studied it with growing unease. Herbivores, scavengers, filter feeders, insectivores, small, opportunistic omnivores. Not a single apex predator in the bunch. There are some predator species in the galactic community, Professor Kelrax explained, noticing Marcus's expression. But they are ambush hunters or pack coordinators who evolved social intelligence for cooperative hunting of prey larger than themselves. None are persistence predators, none are apex predators. What's a persistence predator? Marcus asked. A predator that hunts by following prey until it collapses from exhaustion, the professor said. It is considered one of the most terrifying hunting strategies in nature. The prey runs, but the predator keeps coming. The prey hides, but the predator tracks it. The prey cannot rest, cannot escape, cannot win. It can only run until it dies of exhaustion or the predator catches it. Marcus thought about humans jogging, about marathon runners, about how his ancestors hunted animals by following them for hours or even days until they couldn't run anymore. Oh, yes, Professor Kelrax said. Oh, indeed. The Avarii representative stood, her talons clicking on the floor. I motion that we revoke Earth's membership until further review. The human should be sent home for everyone's safety. Seconded, said another voice. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He'd worked so hard to get here, studied for years, competed against thousands of other candidates, been chosen to represent his entire planet. And now it was ending before it even began. Wait! The voice came from the back of the room. A blob of translucent blue gelatin oozed forward. Marcus recognized the species as Vlox, though he'd never spoken to one. I am Blue Mex, genetics researcher. I wish to speak. Chancellor Vrixnell gestured permission. I have been reviewing the humans' biological data, Blue Mex said, their form rippling as they communicated. It is true that humans are apex predators, but they are also something else, something unique. The Vlox projected their own hologram, this one showing human evolution. Marcus watched his ancestors change, growing taller, losing fur, walking upright. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, yes, Blumex continued. But look at what else evolved alongside this trait. Complex social structures, advanced tool creation, abstract thinking. Humans did not survive by being the strongest or fastest. They survived by being smart, by working together, by adapting. They still have the predator instincts, the Avarii said. Do they? Blumex shifted their form into something like a questioning posture. Marcus Chen, when my people's ship crashed on a hostile world 2 centuries ago, we were hunted by a large predator. What would a human do in that situation? Marcus thought about it. Run if I could, fight if I had to, but first I'd try to scare it off. Make myself look bigger, make noise, maybe use fire or tools. Most predators don't want to fight if they think they might get hurt. Interesting, Blumex said. You would not immediately attack? No way. Fighting is dangerous. Even if you win, you might get injured. Better to avoid it if possible. And if you had others with you? We'd group up, protect each other, probably try to build a shelter or get to high ground. Blumex turned to the assembled representatives. This is not the thinking of a mindless predator. This is the thinking of an intelligent being who understands risk, cooperation, and strategic planning. The room murmured with discussion. Professor Kelrax leaned forward. Marcus, why did you come to this station? What do you hope to learn here? Marcus considered the question. I want to understand the galaxy, meet new species, learn how they think, how they live. I want to study xenobiology because I think life is amazing in all its forms. I want to be part of something bigger than just Earth. Even though it frightens you? The professor asked. Of course it frightens me. Everything here is new and strange. But that's why I came. Because being scared of something new is how you miss out on everything wonderful. The old scholar made a sound that the translator rendered as pleased. Chancellor, I propose an alternative to expulsion. Allow the human to remain under specific conditions. He will wear a biosignal dampener to mask his predator signature. He will attend additional cultural training. And he will participate in my research study on interspecies interaction. A dampener can be removed, the Avari said. So can anyone's clothing, Professor Kelrax countered. We must decide if we believe in our own principles. Do we judge beings by their actions or their biology? Marcus Chen has taken no aggressive action. He has shown only the desire to learn and cooperate. If we reject him for what he is, rather than who he chooses to be, what does that say about us? The room fell silent. Chancellor Vrixnall's tentacles swayed as the jellyfish being thought. We will vote, the Chancellor announced. Marcus held his breath as the representatives cast their decisions. It was close, terrifyingly close. But when the final count came in, Marcus had won by a narrow margin. He could stay. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice rough with relief. I promise I'll do my best to fit in. See that you do, the Chancellor said. Professor Kelrax, arrange for the dampener and modified schedule. This meeting is adjourned. As the representatives filed out, many of them keeping as much distance from Marcus as possible, the young human sat alone at the table. He'd won the right to stay, but he'd also learned a hard truth. To most of the galaxy, he wasn't just a student or a person. He was a predator, and nothing would ever change that simple biological fact. The question was whether he could convince them that humans were more than their evolutionary past. The biosignal dampener looked like a silver bracelet, but it made Marcus's arm tingle with a sensation that never quite went away. He'd been wearing it for 2 weeks now, and the constant buzzing against his skin was driving him slowly crazy. Recording day 14, Marcus said to his datapad, which hovered in front of his face capturing video. Breakfast today was synthetic protein paste, algae cakes, and something the cafeteria called juice, but tasted like liquid metal. I miss bacon. I miss it so much. He was sitting in his dorm room, which he now had entirely to himself. His roommate, Tixie, had requested an emergency transfer the day after Marcus arrived. The rabbit-like Lepidae had taken one look at Marcus without the dampener, and her entire body had started shaking. She'd moved out within an hour. Marcus sighed and continued his video log. Professor Kelrax had asked him to document everything, what he ate, how he moved, what he thought about. The recordings were supposed to help other species understand humans better. So far, they'd mainly helped Marcus realize how weird he was to everyone else. Classes are going okay, I guess, he told the camera. I sit in the back row so I don't make anyone nervous. Professor Kelrax is great, but everyone else still treats me like I might snap and eat someone at any moment. Yesterday in advanced chemistry, I sneezed, and half the class activated their emergency shields. He stopped recording and got ready for his morning jog. The station had a recreation ring designed for exercise, though most species used it for gentle floating or slow gliding. Marcus had been using it to run. The first time he jogged there, security had been called again. Apparently, an apex predator moving at speed was terrifying even with a dampener. Now Marcus had scheduled time when the recreation ring was closed to other students. He ran alone. His sneakers pounded against the track as he settled into a comfortable pace. 5 kilometers today, he decided. Back on Earth, he'd run with friends, competing and joking. Here, security cameras tracked his every step, and he knew someone in the security office was watching, making sure he didn't hunt anyone. After his run, sweating and breathing hard, Marcus headed to the cafeteria. The morning crowd parted around him like water around a rock. No one wanted to get too close, even with the dampener. He grabbed his tray of nutrient paste and found an empty table in the corner. "Excuse me?" Marcus looked up to see a blob of translucent blue gelatin hovering beside his table. Blumex, the Vlox researcher who'd spoken on his behalf at the meeting. "Mind if I join you?" Blumex asked. "Please," Marcus said, surprised and grateful. "I'd like the company." Blumex settled onto a chair, their form adjusting to fit the seat. "I have been reviewing your video logs for the study. They are quite fascinating. They're mostly me complaining about cafeteria food." "Yes, but the way you describe food is interesting. You talk about taste, texture, temperature. Most species think of food simply as fuel. You seem to have an emotional connection to eating." Marcus thought about that. "I guess so. On Earth, sharing meals is social. Families eat together. Friends meet for dinner. Food isn't just nutrition, it's culture, memory, love. My grandmother's dumplings, my mom's birthday cakes, getting pizza with friends after exams. Food is connected to everything good in my life." Blumex rippled thoughtfully. "We Vlox absorb nutrients through our membrane. There is no taste, no texture, no shared meals. Your experience of eating is completely foreign to us." "Does that bother you?" "No, it fascinates me. You are helping me understand that being different does not mean being threatening." Over the next few days, Blumex started joining Marcus regularly. The Vlox had no fear response to humans. Their biology didn't include the prey instincts that made other species nervous. They asked endless questions about Earth, about human culture, about everything Marcus took for granted. "Why do you smile at people?" Blumex asked one day. "It's friendly. It shows I'm happy to see them. But you are showing your teeth, your predator teeth." Marcus touched his mouth. "I never thought about it that way. Smiling is just being nice. Other species see it as a threat display." Marcus stopped smiling at people after that. It was harder than he expected. Smiling was automatic, something he did without thinking. Now he had to consciously control his face, keep his lips closed, avoid showing teeth, another piece of being human that he had to hide. The video logs continued. Marcus recorded himself studying, which apparently was interesting because he could focus for hours without moving. He recorded himself doing laundry, cooking instant noodles in his room, practicing the guitar he'd brought from Earth. Each mundane activity became something alien and strange when viewed through the lens of galactic biology. Then something unexpected happened. His videos started getting views. Not many at first, just a few dozen curious students. But then hundreds, then thousands. Students across the station were watching his logs, fascinated by this strange predator who complained about cafeteria food and played sad songs on his guitar. "You are becoming famous," Blumex informed him one day. "There are discussion forums analyzing your every action." "Is that good or bad?" "Both. Some students are learning that you are not dangerous. Others are becoming more convinced that humans are incomprehensible aliens." Marcus checked the forums that night and immediately regretted it. Thread after thread of students debating whether his actions were genuine or calculated manipulation. Some thought his guitar playing was beautiful. Others thought it was a hunting call. Some found his jokes funny. Others analyzed them for hidden threats. One comment stuck with him. "It acts so normal, so friendly. That's what makes it so scary. You can't tell what it's really thinking." Marcus recorded a video response that night. "I've been reading the forums," he told the camera. "I know a lot of you are scared of me. I understand why. But I want you to know something. I'm not acting. This is really me. I'm not pretending to be nice or safe. I am nice and safe because that's who I choose to be. Yes, my ancestors were hunters, but they were also artists, musicians, storytellers, friends. Humans are complicated just like every other species." He paused, trying to find the right words. "I'm not asking you to stop being afraid. Fear is biological. I get that. But maybe you could be afraid and still give me a chance? I'm just a college student trying to pass my classes and make friends." "Same as you." The video got more views than all his others combined. The responses were mixed, but some of them were kind. A few students even commented that they might be willing to meet him. One of those students was Tixie, his former roommate. She showed up at his door 3 weeks after moving out, her long ears twitching nervously. "I watched your videos," she said, not coming inside. "All of them." "Thanks," Marcus said carefully. "That means a lot. I am still afraid of you. My body tells me to run when I see you, but I think maybe my body is wrong." "It's not wrong. Your instincts kept your ancestors alive. They're just not useful here." Tixie's nose twitched. "May I ask you a question?" "Anything." "If I was injured and helpless, would you hurt me?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Never. I would help you if I could. I'd get you medical care, stay with you until help came, do whatever I could to make sure you were okay." "Why?" "Because that's what humans do. We take care of each other and not just other humans. We domesticated animals, keep pets, rescue injured wildlife. Taking care of creatures weaker than us is what makes us human." Tixie stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then she took one small step inside his room. It was the bravest thing Marcus had ever seen. "I would like to try being doormates again," she said, her voice shaking, "if you will have me." Marcus smiled with his lips closed. "I'd like that very much." That night, as Tixie nervously arranged her things back in her corner of the room, Marcus realized something important. He wasn't going to win over the entire station with one grand gesture. He was going to do it the human way, one small connection at a time, with patience, persistence, and the stubborn refusal to give up. After all, he was a persistence predator, and what he was hunting now was not prey, but acceptance. The survival course was mandatory for all second-term students, and Marcus had been dreading it for weeks. 3 days on a wilderness moon with a randomly assigned team, limited supplies, and no rescue except in true emergencies. It was designed to teach cooperation and problem-solving under stress. Marcus's team stood in the dropship bay, checking their equipment. There was Tixie, who still flinched when Marcus moved too quickly, but had slowly become his friend. Blumex, the Vlox researcher who found everything about humans fascinating. Zix, a shardkin whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns. And Ketvar, an Avari who had been openly hostile to Marcus since day one. "I protest this team assignment," Ketvar said, her feathers ruffled. "The Predator should not be allowed to participate." "The administration disagrees," Blumex said calmly. "Marcus has as much right to this course as any of us. When something goes wrong, do not expect me to help him." Marcus said nothing. He'd learned that sometimes silence was better than trying to defend himself. The dropship carried them to the surface of Moon 447 Beta, a world of rocky hills, scrubby vegetation, and unpredictable weather. The ship touched down in a clearing, deposited the team and their supplies, and lifted off immediately. 3 days, Zix said, their voice chiming softly. "The rescue beacon activates automatically after 72 hours. They set up camp near the landing zone, following the training they'd received. Marcus helped where he was allowed, mostly hauling equipment. His human strength made him useful for heavy lifting, though Ketvar muttered about brute force every time. The first day passed without incident. They explored the area, identified water sources, tested the local plants for toxins. Marcus stayed with the group, trying not to make anyone nervous by wandering off. On the second day, everything went wrong. They were crossing a ridge when the ground beneath them cracked. Ancient lava tubes, unstable and hidden, collapsed under their weight. Marcus tumbled down with rocks and dirt, hitting the ground hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. Pain shot through his left arm. When the dust settled, he was at the bottom of a ravine with his team scattered around him. Their emergency beacon was crushed under a boulder. Their supplies were buried somewhere in the rubble, and Tixie was crying. One of her legs bent at a wrong angle. "Is everyone alive?" Blumex called out, their form rippling with distress. "Injured," Tixie whimpered. "Can't move." "My wing is damaged," Ketvar said. She couldn't fly out. "I am intact," Zix reported, though several cracks ran through their crystalline body. Marcus stood up slowly, testing his limbs. His left arm hurt badly, maybe sprained, but everything worked. "I'm okay." "The beacon is destroyed," Blumex said. "We cannot call for rescue." Panic rippled through the group. Without the beacon, they would have to wait the full 3 days for automatic rescue. That was the protocol. But Tixie was injured, possibly seriously. 3 days might be too long. "We need to assess the situation," Marcus said, forcing his voice to stay calm. "First, injuries, then shelter, water, warmth. We can figure this out." "You figure it out?" Ketvar snapped. "This is your fault, Predator. You are the heaviest. Your weight probably caused the collapse." "Blaming helps nothing," Blumex said. "Marcus, what should we do?" Everyone turned to look at him, and Marcus realized they were scared. Not of him this time, but of the situation. They were looking to him for answers because he was the only one not paralyzed by fear. His human instincts kicked in. "Tixie first," Marcus said. He knelt beside her, gently examining her leg. "It's broken, but the bone isn't through the skin. We need to stabilize it." He found straight branches among the debris and used strips from his own shirt to create a splint, ignoring the pain in his own arm. Tixie whimpered, but held still. "You are good at this," she said quietly. "Humans break bones a lot. We learn first aid young." Next, he surveyed their situation. The ravine was steep, but not impossible to climb. Water trickled from a crack in the rocks, possibly drinkable. They'd have to test it. No immediate predators visible, but that could change. "We need shelter before nightfall," Marcus said. "It'll get cold. Blumex, can you search for caves or overhangs? Zix, you refract light. Can you signal for help?" "The nearest team is kilometers away," Zix said. "Try anyway. Ketvar, your wing is hurt. But can you climb to higher ground and scout the area?" The Avari looked at him with suspicion. "Why should I take orders from you?" "Because I know what I'm doing," Marcus said simply. "My species survived by adapting to situations like this. I'm not trying to be in charge. I'm trying to keep us alive." There was a long pause. Then Ketvar nodded stiffly and began climbing. Marcus turned his attention to immediate needs. He tested the water, clean enough. He gathered dry vegetation for potential fire. He found a sheltered overhang that would protect them from wind. All actions that felt natural to him but seemed almost magical to the others. "How do you know to do these things?" Blumex asked. "Humans camp for fun. We hike, explore, challenge ourselves in nature. This is scary, but it's not completely foreign." When Ketvar returned from scouting, she reported no rescue teams visible, but she'd seen smoke in the distance, possibly another team. Marcus nodded and began gathering green branches. "What are you doing?" Zix asked. "Making a signal fire. Green wood makes more smoke." "Fire?" Tixie's ears went back. "Is that not dangerous?" "Very. That's why it works as a signal." He built the fire carefully, using friction methods he'd learned in Boy Scouts years ago. The others watched in amazement as he coaxed sparks into tinder, tinder into flames, flames into a smoking signal fire. As night fell, they huddled in the shelter Marcus had found. He'd gathered enough dry wood to keep a fire going for warmth. Tixie's leg was elevated and splinted. Everyone had water. They weren't comfortable, but they were alive and stable. "You are not what I expected," Ketvar said into the darkness. Marcus fed another stick to the fire. "What did you expect?" "A monster. A mindless predator. Instead, you are the reason we are not all dead." "I'm just doing what makes sense." "No," Blue Mech said. "You are doing what humans do. You see a problem and you solve it. You see danger and you face it. You see injured companions and you help them. These are not universal traits." Marcus thought about that. "What would your species do in this situation?" "Vlox would wait for rescue. We are not built for action. Shardkin would attempt logical analysis until we found the optimal solution," Zix said, "which might take longer than we had. Lepidae would hide and hope the danger passes," Tixie admitted quietly. "Avarii would panic," Ketvar said. "I am ashamed to admit it, but it is true. We are not brave species." "But you're all here," Marcus said. "You're all surviving. That takes courage, too." The fire crackled between them, and Marcus saw something change in how they looked at him. Not fear anymore, something else. Respect, maybe. Or trust. "I was wrong about you," Ketvar said. "I thought your predator nature made you dangerous. But watching you today, I understand. You are dangerous, yes, but not to us. You are dangerous to problems, to threats, to anything that would harm your team." "Humans protect their pack," Blue Mech said. Marcus smiled in the darkness. "Yeah, we do." They were rescued the next morning by a team that had seen Marcus's signal fire. The survival instructors reviewed their performance and gave them high marks for teamwork and problem-solving. What the instructors didn't know was that everything had been recorded by their equipment. By the time they returned to Harmony 7, footage of Marcus's actions had already spread across the station network. Students watched him calmly splint Tixie's leg, efficiently build shelter, and create fire from nothing. They saw his teammates' fear transform into reliance. The conversation about humans was shifting. Maybe, people whispered, having an apex predator around wasn't such a terrible thing after all. Marcus walked through the main corridor of Harmony 7 station, coffee in hand, backpack over his shoulder. Students moved around him, going to classes, chatting with friends, living their lives. A few glanced his way. Some nodded in greeting. No alarms screamed, no one fled. It had been 4 months since that first disastrous day. "Marcus, wait up!" He turned to see Tixie hopping toward him, her injured leg fully healed. She fell into step beside him without hesitation, her natural fear of predators now buried under months of friendship. "Ready for Professor Kelrax's exam?" she asked. "I studied until 3 in the morning. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. You humans need less sleep than most species. It seems unfair." Marcus laughed. "Yeah, but you can hear sounds I can't even imagine. Every species has advantages." They walked to class together, stopping at the cafeteria for Tixie to grab breakfast. Other students were there, and several called out greetings to Marcus. Not all of them were comfortable around him yet, but more were willing to try. The change had been gradual. After the survival course footage went viral, Marcus had become something of a minor celebrity. Students started analyzing his problem-solving methods. The athletics department recruited him as a consultant for endurance training. Someone had even started a forum called Humans Are Weird But Useful. Professor Kelrax's xenobiology class had become the most popular course on the station, partly because Marcus served as a teaching assistant. Today, he was supposed to give a presentation on human evolution. The lecture hall filled with students from a dozen species. Marcus stood at the front, his biosignal dampener still on his wrist, not because the alarms would trigger anymore, but because it made others comfortable, and that seemed fair. "Good morning," Marcus said. "Today I want to talk about what it means to be an apex predator." He pulled up a hologram of early humans walking across an African savanna. "My ancestors were not the biggest or strongest creatures on Earth. They were not the fastest or most deadly. But they had something else: persistence and intelligence. When they hunted, they didn't chase prey down quickly. They followed it for hours, sometimes days, until the animal was too exhausted to run anymore." The class watched, fascinated and slightly horrified. "This sounds cruel," Marcus continued. "And maybe it was. But it also required something important: patience, planning, cooperation, and empathy. You had to understand the animal you were hunting. You had to predict its behavior, know when it was tired, recognize when it would turn and fight." Humans succeeded not by being better predators, but by being better thinkers. He changed the hologram to show humans building fires, creating tools, painting on cave walls. Somewhere along the way, we stopped just surviving and started creating. We made art, music, stories. We domesticated animals not to eat them, but to be companions. We cared for our elderly and disabled, even when they couldn't hunt anymore. We became something more than just predators. A Shardkin student raised a limb. "But you still have the instincts, the biological drives. How do you control them?" "The same way you control your instincts," Marcus said. "Every species has biological programming. You evolved to fear predators, right? Yet here you are, sitting in a room with me. Biology suggests what we might do, but choice determines what we actually do." "Is it difficult?" another student asked. "Fighting your nature?" Marcus thought about that. "Sometimes. When I'm angry, part of me wants to yell or fight. When I see someone weaker being hurt, I want to intervene physically. But humans learned a long time ago that giving in to every instinct leads to chaos. We built societies with rules, ethics, and shared values. We chose cooperation over conflict." Professor Kelrax spoke up from the back of the room. "This is the key point. Humans are apex predators who evolved social intelligence sophisticated enough to override their predatory instincts. It is a fascinating combination." After class, Marcus headed to his dormitory. The common room was full of students working on various projects. Blumex waved him over to where they sat with a diverse group: Avari, Vlox, Lepidae, and others. "We need your human brain," Blumex said. "We are stuck on this engineering problem." Marcus looked at the holographic projection they were studying. It showed a complex system of energy distribution that kept failing at specific nodes. "What have you tried?" Marcus asked. "We have run 6,000 simulations," Zix said, "each one optimizing for maximum efficiency. All fail." Marcus studied the problem, then had a strange thought. What if you're optimizing for the wrong thing? Instead of maximum efficiency, what if you built in redundancy, like backup systems that kick in when the main system fails? The group looked at him like he'd spoken nonsense. "That would be less efficient," an Avari engineer said, "but more reliable. On Earth, our bodies have redundant systems: 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, backup pathways for blood flow. It's not efficient, but it's robust." Blumex rippled with excitement. "Inefficient but functional. It is such a human concept." They ran the simulation with Marcus's suggestion. The system worked. It used more energy and was technically less elegant, but it didn't fail. The group erupted in excited discussion, already planning modifications. "You see problems differently than we do," Zix said to Marcus. "We seek perfection. You seek solutions that work." "My species couldn't afford perfection. We just needed things that worked well enough to survive." That evening, Marcus sat in the observation deck, watching stars drift past the station's viewports. Ketvar found him there, settling beside him with her feathers smooth and relaxed. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You already apologized, several times. I need to say it again. I was wrong about you, about humans. I let fear blind me to everything else you were." "Fear isn't wrong," Marcus said. "It's just incomplete. Yeah, humans can be scary, but we're also loyal, creative, stubborn, and kind. We're complicated." "All species are complicated," Ketvar said. "I am learning this." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy turn. Later that night, Marcus made his final video log for Professor Kelrax's study. "Recording day 120, he said to the camera. "I've been thinking about what I've learned here. When I arrived, I thought the hard part would be proving I wasn't dangerous. But that wasn't really the challenge. The challenge was showing that being dangerous and being safe aren't opposites." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Humans are apex predators. We have the biology to hunt, fight, and kill. But we also have the intelligence to choose differently. Every day, billions of humans on Earth wake up and choose cooperation over conflict. We choose to help instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy. Not because we're not capable of violence, but because we've decided that's not who we want to be." Marcus looked directly at the camera. "I think that's the real lesson. It's not about what we are. It's about what we choose to do with what we are. And if a species of apex predators can choose kindness, then maybe there's hope for everyone." He ended the recording and looked around his dorm room. Tixie was asleep in her corner, no longer afraid to be unconscious around him. His datapad showed messages from his study group, planning their next session. On his desk was a gift from Blumex, a small sculpture representing friendship in Vlock's culture. He'd come to Harmony 7 Station as humanity's representative, carrying the weight of his entire species. He'd triggered alarms, caused panic, and faced rejection. But he'd also made friends, helped solve problems, and showed the galaxy that humans were more than their teeth and predatory eyes. Marcus Chen took off his biosignal dampener and set it on the desk. He didn't need it anymore. The station had updated its systems, but more importantly, the students had updated their understanding. Tomorrow, he'd walk to class like he had that first day, at a normal human pace, with forward-facing eyes tracking his path, carrying coffee and his backpack. But this time, no alarms would blare. This time, people would know him not as an apex predator, but as Marcus, student, friend, problem solver, and human. He had earned his place among the stars not by hiding what he was, but by showing who he chose to be. And that choice, made every day by every human, was what truly made humanity remarkable. The galaxy was bigger than anyone had imagined, full of diversity that sometimes frightened and sometimes amazed. There was room in it for prey and predators, for the fearful and the brave, for those who sought perfection and those who embraced useful imperfection. There was room for humans. Marcus had proven that. And somewhere on Earth, thousands of other young humans were preparing for their chance to reach the stars, each carrying the same potential Marcus had shown, to be dangerous and kind, predatory and protective, frightening and friendly. To be human in all its complicated, contradictory, wonderful glory. The alarms would never blare for him again. But Marcus had a feeling that humanity's impact on the galactic community was just beginning. And for the first time since arriving on Harmony 7 Station, he couldn't wait to see what came next.